Imagine early humans living in small nomadic bands. Survival was a cooperative endeavor. Everyone contributed to the group's well-being. There were natural differences in strength and skill. However, these did not translate into rigid social divisions. Leadership was fluid, based on immediate needs and individual capabilities. This egalitarian structure characterized early human societies. As humans transitioned to agriculture, settlements grew larger, societies became more complex, the need for organization and leadership increased. With this came the emergence of social hierarchies. Those who controlled resources like land or surplus food gained power. This power often became hereditary, passed down through families. The rise of agriculture also led to specialization of labor. Different groups performed specific tasks such as farming, crafting, or religious rituals. This specialization further solidified social distinctions. Some occupations, like those associated with religion or governance, were seen as more prestigious. This led to the development of social strata, with some groups enjoying more privileges than others. This shift from egalitarian bands to hierarchical societies marked a significant turning point in human history. It laid the foundation for the complex social structures that would characterize civilizations for millennia to come. Understanding this early development of social hierarchies is crucial for comprehending the inequalities that persist in the modern world. In ancient Mesopotamia, for example, the rise of city-states brought about a clear division between the ruling class and the common people. The rulers, often seen as divine or semi-divine, controlled vast resources and wielded significant power. Similarly, in ancient Egypt, the pharaoh was considered a god-king, and the society was highly stratified. The construction of monumental structures like the pyramids was possible due to the organized labor of thousands of workers, overseen by a hierarchical system. In ancient China, the Zhou dynasty introduced the concept of the mandate of heaven, which justified the ruler's authority as divinely ordained. This further entrenched the hierarchical structure, with the emperor at the top and various levels of nobility and commoners below. These examples illustrate how early human societies transitioned from egalitarian groups to complex hierarchies, setting the stage for the social structures we see today. By examining these historical contexts, we gain a deeper understanding of the roots of social inequality and the enduring impact of these early hierarchies on modern society. The ancient civilizations of Mesopotamia, Egypt, and the Indus Valley developed sophisticated social hierarchies. These hierarchies were often intertwined with religion and justified by divine authority. Rulers were seen as intermediaries between gods and humans, their power absolute and unquestioned. In Mesopotamia, the king stood at the apex of the social pyramid. He was followed by priests, nobles, and wealthy merchants. Scribes, artisans, and farmers made up the middle strata. At the bottom were slaves, often prisoners of war or debtors. Social mobility was limited, with one's birth largely determining their station in life. Ancient Egypt had a similarly stratified society. The pharaoh, considered a living god, held supreme power. Below him were high priests and nobles who administered the kingdom and controlled vast estates. Scribes, skilled artisans, and soldiers occupied the middle ranks. Farmers and laborers formed the base of the pyramid. The Indus Valley civilization, known for its urban planning and advanced sanitation, also exhibited social differentiation. While less is known about their specific hierarchy, archaeological evidence suggests a ruling elite, possibly priest-kings, who oversaw religious ceremonies and governance. Merchants, artisans, and laborers likely formed the lower tiers of society. These ancient civilizations demonstrate how social hierarchies became entrenched in human societies. They highlight the enduring influence of religion, power, and economic factors in shaping social structures. In ancient China, the emperor was at the top of the social hierarchy, seen as the son of heaven. Below him were scholars and officials who were often Confucian scholars and played key roles in administration. Artisans, farmers, and merchants formed the lower classes, with farmers being highly valued for their role in sustaining the population. In ancient Greece, social structures varied between city-states. In Athens, citizens had political rights, while non-citizens, including women, slaves, and metics, did not. Sparta had a rigid hierarchy, with the ruling Spartiates, the Perioeci, who were free but non-citizens, and the Helots, who were state-owned serfs. The Roman Empire had a complex social structure, with the emperor at the top. followed by senators, equestrians, and common citizens. Slaves and freedmen were at the bottom, with slaves often working in households, mines, and as gladiators. These examples illustrate the diversity and complexity of social hierarchies in ancient civilizations, each shaped by unique cultural, religious, and economic factors. The caste system in ancient India represents one of the most rigid forms of social stratification, deeply rooted in the subcontinent's history and culture. This system, known as Varna, was a cornerstone of ancient Indian society. It divided society into four main categories, or Varnas: Brahmins, priests and scholars; Kshatriyas, warriors and rulers; Vaishyas, merchants and landowners; and Shudras, laborers and service providers. Each Varna had specific roles and responsibilities, creating a structured and hierarchical society. The origins of this system can be traced back to the Vedic period, around 1500 BCE. Outside this fourfold division were the Dalits, considered untouchables, who performed the most menial and polluting tasks. They were marginalized and faced severe discrimination. The term Dalit itself means oppressed or broken. This system, originating in the Vedic period, was based on the concept of ritual purity. The idea was that one's caste determined their spiritual cleanliness and societal worth. The Rig Veda, one of the oldest sacred texts, mentions the Varnas and their duties. Brahmins at the top were considered the purest, while Dalits were deemed impure and relegated to the margins of society. This hierarchy was maintained through strict social norms and religious doctrines. The Manusmriti, an ancient legal text, codified these rules and reinforced the caste hierarchy. Each caste had its own prescribed duties, and social interactions were strictly regulated. Marriages, dining, and even physical proximity were governed by caste rules. These regulations ensured that the social order remained intact and unchallenged. The caste system had a profound impact on Indian society for centuries. It influenced every aspect of life, from occupation to social status and even personal relationships. The rigidity of the system meant that one's caste dictated their entire life trajectory. It determined not only one's occupation, but also their social standing, marriage prospects, and even access to basic necessities like water and education. This created a deeply entrenched social order. The economic implications were significant, as certain castes had exclusive access to resources and opportunities. Social mobility was virtually impossible, with individuals born into their caste and expected to remain there for life. This lack of mobility perpetuated inequality and limited personal growth. The hereditary nature of the caste system meant that one's social status was predetermined at birth. While reforms and social movements have challenged the caste system, its legacy continues to affect contemporary India. Efforts to dismantle caste-based discrimination have seen progress, but challenges remain. The Indian Constitution, adopted in 1950, outlawed caste-based discrimination, yet societal attitudes have been slow to change. Discrimination based on caste persists, particularly in rural areas, highlighting the deep-rooted nature of social hierarchies and the challenges in eradicating them. The struggle for equality and social justice continues in modern India. Social reformers like Dr. B.R. Ambedkar have played pivotal roles in advocating for the rights of marginalized communities, but the journey towards a caste-free society is ongoing. Following the fall of the Roman Empire, Europe entered the medieval period. This era saw the rise of feudalism, a decentralized political and social system characterized by a hierarchical relationship between lords and vassals. At the top of this hierarchy was the king, who granted land or fiefs to nobles in exchange for military service and loyalty. These nobles, in turn, granted smaller portions of land to lesser lords, creating a chain of obligation and allegiance. At the bottom of this feudal pyramid were the peasants, who worked the land owned by the lords. They paid taxes and provided labor in exchange for protection and the right to farm a portion of the land for their sustenance. Feudalism created a rigid social structure with limited social mobility. Nobility was hereditary and peasants were tied to the land, with little opportunity to improve their station. The Catholic Church, a powerful force in medieval Europe, reinforced this social order, preaching that God ordained the different social classes. While feudalism eventually declined, replaced by centralized monarchies and the rise of cities, its legacy can still be seen in aspects of European history and culture. The remnants of feudal landowning patterns, social customs, and even language reflect the enduring impact of this hierarchical system. The economic system under feudalism was primarily agrarian, with the majority of the population engaged in farming. However, towns and cities began to grow, fostering trade and the rise of guilds, which regulated crafts and commerce. Manorialism, the economic counterpart to feudalism, structured rural life around a lord's manor where peasants worked the land and produced goods. The lord of the manor held judicial and economic power over the peasants, administering local justice and managing agricultural production. Knights, often vassals to the nobles, were the military elite, trained in warfare and bound by the code of chivalry. Women in medieval society had defined roles, with noble women managing estates in their husbands' absence and peasant women contributing to agricultural labor. Despite the rigid social structure, communal activities such as festivals and religious ceremonies provided a sense of community and continuity. The preservation and transmission of knowledge were largely in the hands of the church, with monasteries serving as centers of learning and literacy. The architectural legacy of the medieval period, seen in cathedrals and castles, reflects the social and economic structures of feudalism. Art and culture flourished within this framework, with patronage from the church and nobility supporting the creation of tapestries, illuminated manuscripts and other works. The landscape of Europe today still bears the marks of its feudal past, with remnants of estates and manorial lands shaping the rural countryside. Section 5: East Asian Hierarchies, Confucianism and Social Order. Confucianism, founded by Confucius in the 6th century BCE, profoundly shaped social hierarchies in China, Japan and Korea. Central to Confucianism are the principles of filial piety, respect for elders and the pursuit of social harmony. In China, the emperor was regarded as the son of heaven, a divine figure responsible for maintaining order and harmony. Scholar officials, selected through rigorous examinations, held prestigious positions and were seen as moral exemplars. Merchants, despite their wealth, were considered lower in status due to Confucian values that prioritized moral integrity over profit. Artisans, peasants and soldiers formed the base of the social hierarchy, each contributing to the stability of society. In Japan, the feudal system mirrored European feudalism, with a rigid hierarchy and a strong emphasis on loyalty and duty. The shogun wielded actual power, while the emperor was a symbolic figurehead. Below the shogun were the daimyo and samurai, who maintained order and protected the land. Farmers, artisans and merchants were considered lower classes, yet essential to the economy. In Korea, the hierarchy emphasized education and social order, with Confucianism deeply influencing governance and daily life. The Yangban, an elite class of scholars and officials, dominated government positions and upheld Confucian ideals. Below them were the Chungjin, Sangmin and Cheonmin, each with distinct roles and responsibilities. Confucian values continue to influence East Asia today, shaping social norms and cultural practices. Respect for authority, family and social harmony remain central to the region's cultural identity. Section 6: Colonialism and Social Stratification, Latin America and Africa. European colonialism profoundly impacted social structures in Latin America and Africa. Colonial powers imposed new hierarchies, exploiting existing social divisions and creating new ones. In Latin America, a rigid social system based on race and origin was established. Peninsulares, born in Spain, held the most power and occupied the highest positions in government and society. Criollos, Europeans born in the Americas, occupied a secondary position, often involved in commerce and land ownership. Mestizos and mulattoes, of mixed European and indigenous or African descent, formed a middle tier, often working in trades and crafts. Indigenous populations and enslaved Africans were at the bottom, subjected to brutal exploitation and forced labor. They faced severe oppression, but also resisted through uprisings and revolts. This created deep-seated inequalities in Latin America, which persist to this day, fueling social movements for equality. In Africa, colonialism disrupted traditional social structures, replacing them with European-imposed systems. Colonial powers exploited ethnic and tribal divisions, often pitting groups against each other to maintain control. This exacerbated tensions and conflicts, leading to prolonged periods of instability in many African nations. The legacy of colonialism is evident in economic disparities and political instability in both regions. Understanding these historical roots is crucial for addressing global inequalities and fostering a more equitable future. Section 7. Modern hierarchies from class to intersectionality. While traditional forms of social stratification based on birth or occupation have declined in many parts of the world, modern societies continue to grapple with complex and evolving hierarchies. Social class, based on factors like income, education, and occupation, remains a significant factor in shaping opportunities and life chances. The rise of industrial capitalism led to new class divisions between the owners of capital, the bourgeoisie, and the working class, the proletariat. While social mobility increased compared to feudal societies, disparities in wealth, access to education, and social networks continue to limit opportunities for upward mobility. Moreover, modern understandings of social stratification recognize the intersectional nature of inequality. Factors like race, gender, sexual orientation, religion, and disability intersect with class, creating overlapping and compounding forms of discrimination. For example, women, particularly women of color, often face greater barriers in the workplace, earning less than their male counterparts for similar work. LGBTQ+ individuals continue to experience discrimination in housing, healthcare, and employment. These intersecting forms of inequality highlight the need for more nuanced and comprehensive approaches to addressing social stratification. The concept of intersectionality, introduced by Kimberly Crenshaw in 1989, emphasizes how different forms of discrimination overlap and intersect, creating unique experiences of oppression for individuals. Intersectionality has become a crucial framework for understanding the complexities of modern social hierarchies, advocating for policies that address multiple dimensions of inequality simultaneously. By recognizing the interconnected nature of social categories, intersectionality calls for a more inclusive approach to social justice, ensuring that no group is left behind in the fight for equality. As societies continue to evolve, the principles of intersectionality offer a path towards a more equitable and just world, where all individuals can thrive regardless of their social identities. Section 8. Champions of Equality, Fighting for a Just World. Throughout history, courageous individuals and social movements have fought tirelessly for a more just and equitable world. From the abolition of slavery to the fight for women's suffrage, these movements have reshaped societies. Their struggles and sacrifices have paved the way for progress, inspiring future generations. The civil rights movement in the United States, for example, was a pivotal era that sought to end racial segregation and discrimination. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar fought against caste discrimination, shaping India's constitution. His efforts were instrumental in ensuring legal protections for marginalized communities. Martin Luther King Jr. led the American civil rights movement with a message of equality and nonviolence. His "I Have a Dream" speech remains a powerful symbol of the fight for civil rights. Nelson Mandela's leadership ended apartheid, bringing democracy to South Africa. His resilience and dedication to justice made him a global icon for human rights. These stories highlight the power of collective action and the enduring human spirit. From Mahatma Gandhi's non-violent resistance to the global fight for LGBTQ+ rights, the quest for justice continues to evolve. Today, movements for climate justice, gender equality, and racial equity remind us that the fight for a just world is ongoing. Each generation builds upon the legacy of those who came before, striving to create a better future for all. Section 9. Towards a more inclusive future. The history of social hierarchies is a complex and often disheartening tale of power, inequality, and oppression. However, it is also a story of resilience, resistance, and the ongoing struggle for a more just world. While significant challenges remain, there is hope for a more inclusive future. Education plays a vital role in dismantling prejudice and promoting understanding. By teaching about the history of social hierarchies, we can raise awareness of the systemic nature of inequality and empower future generations to challenge injustice. Promoting economic justice is crucial for creating a more equitable society. Addressing income inequality, providing access to quality education and healthcare, and ensuring equal opportunities for all are essential steps towards creating a more just world. Finally, fostering empathy and understanding across social divides is paramount. By recognizing our shared humanity and celebrating diversity, we can build bridges of understanding and create a more inclusive future for all. The path towards a more equitable world is long and arduous. However, by learning from the past, embracing our shared humanity and working together, we can create a future where everyone has the opportunity to thrive, regardless of their background or social standing. Current trends show a growing use of technology to bridge gaps and foster inclusivity. Virtual platforms enable global collaboration and learning, breaking down geographical barriers. Future possibilities include sustainable living initiatives and renewable energy projects that not only protect our planet but also create equitable opportunities for all. Social innovation and community-driven projects are paving the way for inclusive growth, ensuring that no one is left behind. By fostering creativity and collaboration, we can build a society that values every individual's contribution and celebrates our collective potential. Together, we can envision and work towards a future where inclusivity is not just an ideal but a lived reality for all.